In July of 2016, a 70-year-old Mike Mansholt traveled from his native Germany to Malta, a small Mediterranean country just south of Italy, but he never came back. But when the body is examined back home in Germany, it's discovered that his body weighs just 16 kilos and is missing all the major internal organs, including his brain, heart, liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines. How is it possible that a young man of just 17 years old, who was no stranger to adventure, ends up dead with virtually all his vital organs missing in a European country? In this video, we are gonna cover this bizarre but chilling case of corruption, police incompetence, lies and deceit, a case that drew the intervention of the German government and the EU, and do our best to figure out just what exactly happened to Mike on that fateful summer day. Mike Mansholt was born in 1999 in Oldenburg, Germany. Since he was very young, Mike has always been very adventurous. He and his father spent a lot of time going hiking, biking, rock climbing, scuba diving, and many other similar activities. Their favorite activity was flying remote-controlled airplanes, and it was this treasured pastime that inspired Mike to make aviation design his life's ambition. In July of 2016, a 17-year-old Mike Mansholt traveled from his native Germany to Malta, a small Mediterranean country just south of Italy. The plan was to see his girlfriend, who was studying there, and also do some exploring and bike riding on the rock terrain with majestic views of the Mediterranean Sea. They checked into Astra, a small hotel on the eastern side of the island in the town of Sliema. The couple spent the next few days enjoying the picturesque scenery. But rather than returning back home together, Mike decided to stay for longer and explore the island alone. His family had no objections to his prolonged stay. They anticipated his return on July the 22nd. On July the 18th, surveillance camera recorded Mike leaving his hotel. He then rented a mountain bike to explore the surrounding paths, with gorgeous views of the Mediterranean Sea below. Okay, I am renting a bike and driving through Malta today. However, the roads are so steep. I'll send you a photo shortly. You can only walk them up in some parts. With the bike, it's not possible, but it doesn't matter. It's a sporting challenge and I like that. That was the last message Mike sent via WhatsApp on July 18th at 9:41 a.m. On July 19th, Mike didn't return the mountain bike as agreed. On July 22nd, he did not land at Bremen International Airport as expected. Soon, his father felt that something wasn't right and subsequently filed a missing persons report with the German police. After the German police launched their missing person investigation, it was discovered that the Maltese police had already launched an investigation of their own, something that Mike's father did not know. That was the first red flag that something wasn't right. Soon after, Mike's father decided to fly to Malta to look for his son. During the search for his son, an anonymous tip led Maltese police to find Mike's body. At around 10 o'clock on the morning of July 26th, a police search party that included cadaver dogs found Mike's body among the Dingli Cliffs in the city of Rabat. He was only 17 years old. 4 weeks later, he would turn 18. Upon examining the body, police reached the conclusion that while riding his mountain bike, he fell off his bike and landed some 20 to 30 meters below. According to the police, although Mike was an experienced adventurer, he wasn't familiar with the terrain and wasn't able to negotiate the narrow path on the summit of the cliffs where he was riding his rented bike. In addition, it was an unusually scorching weather that summer day, with temperatures hovering near 40 degrees Celsius. That only made the situation much worse. Knowing his son's love for adventure and his experience, Mike's father was very skeptical of the police's version of the events. Although falling off the cliffs wouldn't have been out of the ordinary, what was unusual was the location of Mike's body. It was hidden inside one of the ravines below the cliff and not visible from the outside. It seemed highly doubtful that it would end up there after falling down from the cliff. Not far from Mike's body, police found his sneakers and sunglasses. His bicycle was there as well, in a surprisingly decent condition. Another strange thing was that Mike's backpack and his GoPro camera were nowhere to be found. As seen on the surveillance footage, when Mike was leaving the hotel that morning, he had his backpack on his back. When his father returned back to the hotel, he noticed that his room was already cleaned up and prepared for the next guests. The hotel staff dutifully returned some of Mike's belongings to his father, including diving gear. But the GoPro was not among the items left by Mike in his room. According to his father, Mike always recorded his travels and adventures on his trusty GoPro camera, and so it had to have been somewhere. The police assured them that they would look for it and return to him once they'd find it. Mike's father decided to prolong his stay in Malta in order to understand what exactly happened to his son. But after further questioning Maltese law enforcement and members of the government, Mike's father noticed that his requests aren't being fulfilled quickly and that he's getting hints that his stay in the country isn't welcome and that he should go home. On August 17, Mike's body is brought home to Germany and things get even more sinister and confusing. The first thing that the German coroners noticed is that the body wasn't properly embalmed in Malta in order to preserve its state as best as possible. As a result, it degraded even further, and thus it became even more difficult to examine it and determine the true cause of death. Germans also discovered that his body didn't have any broken bones and absolutely no evidence that his death occurred as a result of falling 30 meters off the cliff. But the shocking news would yet to come. Upon further examination of the body, the German coroners concluded that his body was missing all the vital organs. His body only weighed 16 kilos and was missing brain, heart, liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines. The Maltese side explained that this happened as a result of animals feasting on the remains and his brain simply evaporated in the scorching sun. Another interesting fact was that his body didn't have any external signs that result from falling from such a height. There weren't any marks, bruises, or broken bones that one might have after falling from what amounted to a 9-story building. Germans also doubted the theory that his brain melted away in the hot Maltese sun, since the chance of that happening was quite low. Now, in terms of the missing organs, there were many theories, but one of the more streamlined explanations was that they were removed during the examinations in Malta and were not put back in. Unfortunately, all of this raised even more questions than answers for the grieving dad. So what exactly happened to Mike on that fateful afternoon? Was it simply an accident? Or was it something much more nefarious? Let's analyze each of the possible theories. The first theory that we can rule out immediately is suicide. Mike was an ambitious teenager. He had a loving family, a great girlfriend, and huge plans for the future. There was absolutely no indication that he went for a ride that day or even took a trip to Malta in order to take his own life. The second theory is that it was an accident. Perhaps he was riding down one of the trails along the mountain, lost control of his rented mountain bike, and ended up falling down the cliff. The fact that he was unfamiliar with the surroundings and the fact that it was a super hot summer day does give the theory some credibility. The problem with this theory is that according to German examiners, his body didn't have any bruises or other marks consistent with a 30-meter fall. Furthermore, his bike didn't appear to be damaged, consistent with a fall of such magnitude. And looking at the pictures from the scene, his bike does look in fairly good condition. Then there's the location of where his body was found. Police located under a cliff, almost hidden, which is definitely not consistent with falling from such a height. It's certainly possible that an animal or multiple animals might have dragged him there, but then how come his body didn't have any bite marks? The third theory is that he was a victim of organ traffickers who killed him and then removed his organs. This theory is more credible because more than likely all evidence points to Mike being murdered, his body subsequently hidden. But while organ trafficking is a major problem around the world, it's not particularly associated with Malta. The fourth theory is that he was killed and then robbed of his belongings. The killer then hid the body. That way, not only would it be difficult to find it, but even after police did find it, enough time would have been passed that identifying it for any clues or evidence would have been difficult, if not impossible. That would explain the disappearance of his backpack and his camera. Now, what about the fact that all his vital organs were missing? Here where it gets really interesting. Maltese investigators claim that his organs were ripped out and eaten by animals. Yet Germans determined that his body had no signs of any trauma, no bullet injuries, no bite marks or anything like that. Another explanation for his missing organs was that Maltese side did the autopsy, removed the organs, but for whatever reason didn't put them back in. In fact, this has happened before in Malta. When Mike's father prowled the streets of Malta in search for answers to his son's unexpected death, he got to know Dr. Veronique Daly, a human rights lawyer who was eager to help him out. She told him there was a case where a member of the parliament boasted that when he was a med student, he would do an autopsy and then take body organs back home for further examination. Thus, she believed that nothing nefarious happened, it's just that the doctor who did the autopsy didn't put the organs back into the body because of negligence. After staying in Malta for some time and not really being satisfied with the answers he got, Mike's father got on a plane and flew back to his native Germany. In 2018, under heavy pressure from Germany and the EU, Malta resumed their investigation and passed over 200 pages of investigation documents to the German side via the German embassy in Malta. Unfortunately, there was nothing groundbreaking in those documents. Malta didn't change their view of the investigation, didn't admit to any wrongdoing, and continued to stick to their initial version of the events. Naturally, this wasn't what Mike's father had expected. In his gut, he knew all along that Malta was covering something up. Then, a little later, Germany made a complete 180-degree turn and came to believe Malta's version of the events. Mike's death was an accident, and although his organs were missing, it wasn't as sinister or nefarious as what the media painted it to be. At the time of this video, there hasn't been much new development in this case, and thus it remains one of the most bizarre deaths in recent history, especially in a European Union country. Many people still speculate that something truly sinister happened to Mike and don't believe the government's version of the events. Mike's father continues to work as a goldsmith in Oldenburg, Germany, and is still seeking the truth as to what might have happened to his son on that fateful day. Now, what do you think happened to Mike on that fateful day in Malta? Do you think it was a case of suicide? Or was it a case of premeditated murder with the purpose of trafficking his organs? Or a burglary gone wrong? Let me know in the comments below what are your thoughts about this bizarre case. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoy videos like this, please make sure to leave a like and also subscribe, because on this channel I regularly upload videos about true crime, unsolved mysteries and unsolved disappearances. Take care, and we'll meet again in a future video.